Okay, I want to welcome in here, and he was on about a week ago or so. Um, Matt Moreno, nice enough to join the show again. Here, obviously, to talk some Dodgers baseball with Dodgers Blue. What is going on, Matt? Good morning, sir. How are you, brother?
Alan, I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I wasn't sure if this would ever happen again because I know the
Yeah.
last time we talked, it was
Yep.
before Game 5. As you mentioned, your Padres had a little bit of trouble after that point, and I thought, oh man, Alan's never inviting me back on to talk Dodgers baseball again.
Matt, I have a team of about 35 people that are under my umbrella right now. That's a complete lie. Um, and we took a vote, and the vote just barely shaded. Let's let Matt back on, even though he ripped the heart and the soul of Sliwa about a week ago. Um, Now, brother, I think as far as the Dodgers are obviously going and the way they're playing, I know a lot of listeners here love your insight, so I'm excited to have you on. Okay, let me start off with this. You surprised right now that it's 3-1 Dodgers and that they're not just beating the Mets, they are dismantling the Mets. So far in this series, it's 30-9. And I know, listen, whether you win by 1 run or you win by 10, it doesn't matter. It counts as one win. But that's got to be incredibly demoralizing for this Mets team. You surprised at all how much they've dominated?
A little bit. I'm not necessarily surprised that they're up 3-1. If I know we do have some overlap, some people are here this morning with you that watch some of our shows, and if they caught my prediction heading into the NLCS, I said Dodgers in 5, and I
Mm.
just wasn't fully sold on this Mets team. And I know that sounds a little ironic because if you go back to early June, there are different dates that have been thrown around, but basically since early June, the Mets had the best record in baseball, or one of the best records, right? And then they get into the playoffs. They upset the Brewers on the road. They upset the Phillies, and so they're kind of the hot team, in October, which is always a dangerous team. But something about the Mets just if rubbed me the wrong way, if you will. I wasn't fully sold on them, and so the fact that the Dodgers are up at 3-1, no, not surprising. The way they've continued to dominate, and like you said,
Mm.
the run differential that they've had during this series so far, that has been a little bit just because that's not common, right? You get to this point, like different players have said it, every team is good. Like you can't overlook anybody type thing. Uh, but I think it's a testament. One of the things you and I discussed when I was on the first time, I sort of expressed that I think the Dodgers bullpen kind of top to bottom gets overshadowed a little bit, and the Dodgers also do a really good job of matching up their relievers with the right lane of hitters and getting certain matchups and getting them to go the way that they kind of want and organized in that sense and scripted, which I know can be a little bit taboo when it's not going well. Uh, so yeah, the like I said, the series league, not so much. How much they have thoroughly dominated them has been, especially because Ohtani, yes, he's come up with big hits with runners on base, but it's not like he's necessarily batting 500 kind of overall, and he's just an absolute wrecking havoc from the leadoff spot for the Dodgers. It's really been a collective effort.
Okay, so with that, I think there is something to that. I think anytime you see a playoff run in baseball or in the NBA or in football, there's always kind of some unsung heroes. You have to have them. If you're just depending on just your stars to deliver, they have a couple of bad nights, and now all of a sudden you find yourself in a hole. Um, this run so far that the Dodgers have been on, obviously the 5 games against the Padres, and now putting themselves in a position 4 games through the Mets, 1 game away from winning the pennant. Give me some names that have really just have been, and I got a couple that come into mind, but just the names that have been most impressive to you that are not Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts.
I think obviously Tommy Edman is probably one of the first ones that sticks out. You look at Game 4, he had a couple hits, I think a couple RBIs, definitely at least one. I think two. Uh, if you want to go, Max Muncy, I know I saw one of your commenters bring up that he set the postseason, a single postseason record of reaching base safely in 12 consecutive plate appearances. I know you might get some Yankee fans, if they come across this, they'll scream Reggie Jackson, which yes, he did do it, but that was across 2 different playoffs, and so it's Muncy has the record for just one single postseason. Uh, if you want to go,
Yeah,
bullpen,
Yankees. Yeah, I like that. Matt, look at that. The series is not even over yet on both sides, and Matt's already going at the Yankees. What the hell is the World Series going to be like?
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. We'll have to wait and see. You'll have to have me back on. We'll see what kind of mood I'm in that day and how the Yankee fans have been. Uh, but yeah, then if you want, I think you need to look in the bullpen as well. Michael Kopech, Blake Trinan, Evan Phillips. I know things got a little bit shaky. Uh, Jack Flaherty. I mean, it really has been, like I said, a collective effort. As much as Mookie did get things going kind of late into the NLDS and carried that into the series against the Mets, like the Dodgers have received just contributions from everybody, and everything has really sort of clicked, which isn't necessarily common in the playoffs, right? It's very easy for one or two things to go wrong and it kind of blows everything up. But when you do see a team sort of, like I said, for lack of a better term, clicking the way the Dodgers are in every aspect, it's how you get kind of, this type of run.
I got a couple here. One says Kike too, obviously what he's
That
been
is,
able to
yeah.
do,
Yeah.
an unsung hero, and so comfortable in the big moments. Mike here says maybe. By the way, don't say we. I keep trying to emphasize this. I emphasized it yesterday, Matt. Don't say we. You. Okay,
Yeah.
so you could hire Jimmy Trumpet and Mr. Met to entertain Dodger fans during the parade. That's the Dodger fans, man, you give them a little bit of hope. They will run with that like no tomorrow. So wherever the hell they go from here. Um, I think, you were talking about the way they're clicking right now. You watch Dodger baseball every single night. You've been following this team for a long time. You mentioned to me, give the story real quick. Your birth date is the same as give that. I know you and I were talking off air a week ago or so. Give that, because I think that's an interesting connection. I'm gonna get to my next point.
Yeah, so my a little bit of a running. My family grew up following the Dodger fans, so I was going to be born into it anyway. But that was really cemented when I was literally born the night that Kirk Gibson hit his walk-off home run in the '88 World Series. So there is like Tommy Lasorda likes to say, there's Dodger blue in his veins. There might be a little bit in mine as well.
That's a cool story. Cool story. Okay, so this is what I was going to ask. For as long as you've been watching them, we know the struggles that the Dodgers have had in the postseason. Um, there, you could kind of go back to kind of look at some certain stretches for the Dodgers this year. Is this as good as you've seen the Dodgers over this last? Remember, they were down 2-1. They come back, obviously, win the 2 games in a row against the Padres. Even the game they lost 6-5, I don't think was a really poorly played game by either side. You just had one bad inning from both teams. But that's basically 6 games in a row at the highest stage, 2 elimination games. You're playing the New York Mets in the NLCS. Have you seen a stretch like this from the Dodgers, number one, in critical games? And number two, I guess the question is, why do they seem so loose right now when this has been one of the biggest struggles for the Dodgers once they get in the playoffs?
Yeah, so to your first question, I'd be hard pressed to remember another stretch of them playing like this impressive sort of all around baseball. Obviously, during the regular season, you go on 5-game winning streak type things, but sometimes the schedule breaks right and you get the Nationals, and no disrespect to them, or the Marlins type, like teams that obviously aren't contending and aren't necessarily winning, and maybe you're catching them during the middle of the week and they've already used one of their best starting pitchers, and so you get the back end of their rotation. uh and what we didn't necessarily see this year was, which I thought we would at some point in the second half, was the Dodgers go on one of their 20-3 runs, and it just didn't happen. And it's not necessarily a criticism of them, because obviously they were decimated by injuries. It was just a never ending storyline for the team, and it's carried into the playoffs.
What's crazy, Matt, too, and you finish that point off here, but what's crazy is they never needed it either. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is they still ended up with the best record in baseball, even with that. And I think that was kind of this was such an interesting year in baseball because nobody really ran away with anything. That's why all 12 teams that were in the postseason when the playoffs started, it was, hey, and you can make a case for any one of these teams. Of course, there's going to be certain teams that have a greater possibility, but the one fear that I think always was with the Dodgers is if they start clicking, well, what is that? I mean, who's got more talent than the Dodgers? And here they are clicking now. But finish off what you were saying.
Yeah, and so then, to your second question in terms of, what's maybe different for the Dodgers, I think Kike Hernandez deserves at least a decent amount of credit for that. He's obviously been through the postseason. He made certainly with the Dodgers early in his career, then with the Red Sox, uh, definitely once, maybe twice. So he's been in these moments. He relishes these moments, both like just from the pressure, if you will, and the emotional aspect of, and that's something that the Dodgers I don't think have always necessarily embraced. Of hey, like there is absolute value to Dave Roberts having this team kind of, even keeled throughout the long course of a season. Like you lose 3 or 4 in a row, there's no need to put yourself in the dumps. Tomorrow's a different day. You win 3 or 4 in a row, there's no need to get too high because you could just as easily lose a couple. It is a long season, but I thought sometimes where the Dodgers fell a little bit flat was embracing, hey guys, like we don't necessarily need to feel pressure with these playoff games, but we can acknowledge and realize that there might not be a tomorrow. If you lose enough of these, there's no tomorrow. And I think that's changed. Mookie specifically said, he in the playoffs in the past tried to maintain kind of that even keel, not really get any sort of, I think he calls it like an emotion, not ride the emotional wave. And that Kike Hernandez sort of talked to him about maybe taking a little bit of a different approach. And Mookie said, it's kind of unlocked something. It's allowed him maybe to play a little bit more free. So I think we've seen that. I think you get guys obviously like Shohei Ohtani, being the talent that he is. This is his first playoffs. Like this is brand new to him. And so that sort of, I think, motivates him. Will Smith discussed something like Freddie Freeman playing through a pretty bad
Sure.
sprained right ankle and doing what he can to get out there is motivating as a teammate. And so it's almost like, I don't want to call it a perfect storm, but a lot of different factors kind of coming together for this team.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I definitely think there's something there. There's a few times, and you see it even from the opposing side when Freddie Freeman is hobbling around. You're like, damn, that guy's a trooper. Well, imagine if that's one of your own teammates. Imagine if that's one of your own guys that you just kind of see what he has to do just to be on the field to try to help. I think that does kind of set an example. And he's a star player. It's not like,
Right.
this is just some random guy trying to make it in the league. It shows you how much it means to him and everybody else. Before you came on, we are talking a little bit about Dave Roberts. And can you give me what are some of the things that you think Dave Roberts has he done anything different this postseason than he's done in the past? And if he hasn't, that's okay. But what are some of the decisions he's made or some of the strings that he's pulled that has stood out to you so far in the postseason?
Uh, I don't necessarily know how much he's done, quote unquote, different than years past. I think players are doing their jobs. And so every decision he makes looks like it's great and working out. That being said, what I do feel was a little bit different was against the Padres in game 4 when the Dodgers went to a bullpen game. Not so much that they were having a bullpen game because that was obvious, just given the lack of starting pitching depth they have at this point, it was pretty clear they were going to go that route. But what I didn't expect was for Dave Roberts to kind of turn to a lot of the high leverage relievers early on in the game and just basically start a parade of them. And even as the Dodgers sort of started to break that game open a little bit, there was a potential to go to Landon Knack. Like let's have him pitch maybe 2 or 3 innings to save, Blake Trinan or Evan Phillips. Dave Roberts didn't do that. He kept, his foot on the gas, if you will, and kept going to, just one impact kind of trusted relief pitcher after another, even after it kind of appeared late in the game that the Dodgers had it well in hand. And then it wasn't until the ninth inning that Landon Knack got into that. So that was the most surprising. I think that really exemplified. Look, he understood the sense of urgency. If the Dodgers lost that game for whatever reason, they were going home. And the Padres, they're a good enough team that if you put in a relief pitcher early, all of a sudden your 6-0 lead becomes 6-2, and maybe they get a little bit of momentum, and then it's 6-4 a couple innings later, and all of a sudden it's a different ball game, right? So I think he took that possibility just off the table the way he managed that game. I think he's made, he's pushed. He left Jack Flaherty in against the Mets to go 7 shutout innings in game 1. Like he's pushed him a little bit rather than pulling the plug at maybe 5 or 6, and stuff like that. I think makes a little bit of a difference. So he's maybe been a little bit more aggressive, maybe trusted his players a little bit more. But I don't know how different that is. I'd have to really go back and look at kind of the big swing games, maybe of past playoff series to see what he did. I think honestly, a lot of it is the players are just sort of getting the job done.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of I feel like, and this could just simply be the fact that the Dodgers are winning games, so that's why all of a sudden he's looking like, "Oh my gosh, I mean, what Dave's doing this year?" And you're right, maybe it's not that much different than he was doing in the past, but I do feel like his fingerprints are on it a little bit more. I don't know if that means that they're giving him a little bit, you know what? In this situation, we usually take Walker Bueller out of the game. No, let's keep him in for one more at bat. In this situation, with the bases loaded, um, Evan Phillips has looked okay. You know what? Let's go to somebody else. No, let's let him finish and let's see what he can do. I maybe I'm looking at it too much. Moving Tommy Edman up and saying, you know what? Screw it. We're going to bat this guy earlier in the order. Kike as well. There's adjustments that I feel like are happening that, again, you could just be a prisoner of the moment. And maybe this stuff was happening in previous years, but I feel like it has not been typical. Everything is just going by the book, and there's no feel to the game. I feel like sometimes with the Dodgers, it's just, guys, it's already written on paper. We can't take it off the paper. Um, I don't know if I'm a prisoner of the moment right now because of that or seeing that in the past, but it feels like he looks very comfortable in the moment. It feels like his confidence is growing on some of the decisions that he's made and the players that are coming through for him. And I think maybe the point that you made earlier, look, Mookie Betts is not in an 0 for 22 slump or 4 or 3 for 45 or whatever that was. Mookie Betts was 4 for 6 yesterday. Shohei Ohtani, you have star power that's delivering, and you have other players further in the lineup that are delivering, and then you got a bullpen that's still unbelievable, and you got starting pitching that keeps coming through. I guess with a combination of all that, it can make me and you look good as a manager.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree. Maybe there is more feel from him this year than past playoff runs that the Dodgers have had. That to me, in terms of the lineup construction, that's a little bit harder because I know that the front office is involved in kind of, okay, like, how should we do this? And it is the collaborative effort. Not that Andrew Friedman comes down and says, "Hey, this is the lineup. This is it. Like, that's what you have to do." That's a discussion with the bullpen decisions and just pitching in general. I agree. I think we have seen in the past where maybe like he's stuck with a guy for too long type thing because of his feel, and it sort of has backfired. I think, again, some of it, I think it's 50-50 where, it's worked out a lot of times this year. And there have been times, there was a couple, Evan Phillips kind of struggled a little bit last time. I thought he faced one more batter than he normally would have. I think the same thing with Yoshinobu Yamamoto in he didn't complete the inning, but his final inning of work, I thought he faced, I was a little surprised. I think it was Francisco Lindor they let him face after the leadoff man got on. Whereas in the past, I think we would have seen a pitching change at that point. The feel aspect, I think we're seeing Dave get the bull. He's not late in getting a relief pitcher up in the bullpen, which I think has happened on occasion in years past. And then you're in a situation where you have to stick with the pitcher on the mound because you don't have anybody else ready. And look, one or two more at bats, and now all of a sudden that guy, like, you've given up a home run.
Mookie has obviously, whatever struggles he was in before, he's completely changed. When Mookie was struggling versus what Mookie is doing right now, is it I guess maybe quotes that he's had out there before? Was there anything to identify, or was this guy just, hey, once I see once I hit a couple balls hard, now all of a sudden it could be just a confidence thing. I don't know if I need to swing 400 ABs before the next game. What have you noticed that changed with Mookie? Because he's not looking just like Mookie Betts. He's looking like one of the best players in the world over a short period of stretch here, but he is one of the best players in the world. So he's just really looking more like himself.
Yeah, I think honestly it's mental and confidence. It's baseball is a tough sport, and these guys, you're in the Hall of Fame by failing 70% of the time, right? Like, that's kind of the old at. You hit 300, you can kind of get it, and obviously you have other stats in a strong career. Like, that gets you into the Hall of Fame. Well, if you hit 300, that also amounts to failing 70% of the time in your career, which is a lot. Like, baseball players have said it, it's a sport of failure, and I think Mookie put a lot of pressure on himself. I think
I'm
he
at just
felt
Matt, just so you know, I'm like at an 85% clip of failing just in life, just in life in general. But those 15%, man, those are great 15%.
Yeah,
All right, let's get back
definitely.
to it. My
Definitely.
apologies there. My
Uh,
apologies there.
so, I think I think it was, kind of mental. He said during the NLDS that he took, so I don't know at what point he did it, but he took social media off his phone. He stopped going on different apps. I think that helps. To your point, about the 300, 400, 500 swings a day, he says he still is doing that just because at this point, like, he would rather overwork than not work enough
Mm.
with where the Dodgers are. And so it's not like he necessarily found something doing that 5 days ago and has stopped. He is still continuing to do it. And he acknowledges that, it's not necessarily the best thing. Like, you can get worn down that way, but that he does take care of his body. And so he's been able to withstand it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just kind of the mental pressure that maybe he was putting on himself, and the confidence. Like you said, you get a hit, you get a home run, like, all of a sudden things maybe start to feel a little bit. You can breathe
Mm.
a little bit easier. And one thing Dave Roberts said that he was going to talk to Mookie about was, look, like, the Dodgers don't need you to uh, be this kind of superstar, otherworldly player. Dave's message was, we just need you to be Mookie Betts. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing. And like you said, Mookie being Mookie that amounts to one of the best players in baseball. So he's kind of, I would say he's exceeded his expectations just because he's, on a little bit of a heater here with, a lot of the slug that we've seen from him. But it more or less is kind of Mookie reaching kind of just the standard level, the bar that he has set, which admittedly is high, but he's certainly talented enough for that to be reasonable expectations for him.
All right, Matt Moreno, Dodger Blue, hanging out here, and we're talking kind of recapping the first 4 games between the Dodgers and the Mets. I personally believe they should stop televising the games. I mean, it's just not a – I think if Fox replays maybe Oregon, Ohio State from last week, it might get better ratings than this Dodgers-Mets series right now. Dodgers obviously dominating. How do they close it out? What do you feel? There's a early game today, 2:08 first pitch.
Yeah, I tried to get them to
Man,
do
can we just go
205.
205,
I asked them for
210?
210. They said, "Sorry, we need to be 208." Tell Allen maybe we'll get them. We'll get them next time.
208. What are we doing? What are we doing? All right. So what do you just your thoughts? Is this coming back to LA? I think here's the one thing I will say about the Mets. They're playing with house money. Obviously, when I say house money is as in they're down 3-1. There's no pressure on them. I think if they were able to just be a headache for the Dodgers, even if it's for one more game and have to force LA to, obviously close it out in Los Angeles, or are the Dodgers just clicking way too well? Flaherty's on the mound. This is just not going to be one of those days for the Dodgers. What's just your thoughts on this upcoming game, and if you think it's going back to LA?
I think the Dodgers are coming back to LA. I think they're going to be alone. I don't think a second team is from New York is coming with them. Not yet, at least. I think if there is, if you're the Mets and there is some sort of hope, if you will, to me, I sort of wonder, how is Jack Flaherty going to be? We have seen some uneven performances from him recently. His last one was obviously very good, but now at this point, he is starting on kind of the traditional MLB regular rest, which is 4 days, which is not something the Dodgers typically do. Flaherty obviously hasn't been with the Dodgers for multiple years, and so he is accustomed to, I think, this type of schedule, but maybe that is a factor, right? 7 innings in his last start, kind of one fewer day of rest than the Dodgers historically do. Like, will he be a little bit shaky? And is that going to kind of create an opportunity for the Mets to, score some runs early and then, change the complex of the game? I don't necessarily think so. I think this Dodgers team, like I said, is just kind of clicking right now on all cylinders. And heading into this, I said, I predicted the Dodgers would win in 5 games. So that's what I'm going to stick to.
All right, there you go. Real quick, I'm going to ask you one quick question on the ALCS. Incredible game yesterday. Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, if nobody was watching that, Guardians, 2 outs, 2 strikes, 0-2 actually at one point. The count worked its way. Nobody on, down 5-3, and how they gave up the lead. Clase, obviously, their closer, who I saw that stat yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but he had given up, I want to say it was 2 home runs and 5 runs all year.
Yep.
And in the postseason, he's given up 3 home runs, and I think it was 6 runs that he gave up. So Cleveland completely breaking down, an error to get that 5th run. They hit a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 9th inning to tie the game. bottom of the 10th, they hit a 2-run homer. And I would imagine here Dodger fans are looking at that series and saying, Cleveland, make this a series. Cleveland, make this a series. I'm not going to pretend here that I watched Guardians baseball all year because I did not. Between those two teams, if you're just simply trying to win, what's the better matchup for the Dodgers?
I mean, I think probably the Guardians, right? Just because
I would think, I would assume.
the Yankees have Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. Like those are three big hitters who could control a series and change the complex of a game with one swing of the bat. Heading into the ALCS, I thought maybe the Guardians would be able to put up a little bit of a fight against the Yankees because I don't, like you said, like in the playoffs in general, when it started, at least, like there wasn't one team that, oh my gosh, they're the heavy favorites to win all of this. It doesn't matter who they play. Yankees, I think, have some holes. The Dodgers obviously have some holes. The Guardians, have some limitations as well. Once the Guardians went down 2-0 in that series, I thought, okay, this isn't going to really. This might be a short ALCS for them. I think obviously it still
in the
could
bottom
be.
of the 9th, it looked like a short series for them.
Yeah, I think obviously it still could be. Like if the Yankees come back and win today and win tomorrow, then hey, Guardians, pat on the back, you won one game. Like you avoided being swept, I guess. So the potential is still there, but they are at home. Maybe a little bit of motivation. In some sense, they shouldn't have necessarily needed their walk-off home run, right? Like you said, Clase has been lights out all year. And so to kind of give up the back-to-back home runs was unexpected. And so, maybe that game kind of ended the way it sort of should, if you will. Baseball has a funny way of, playing itself out in that sense. But yeah, I mean, if you're the Dodgers, I think your preference would probably be the Guardians. If you're Major League Baseball, obviously you're rooting for the Dodgers and Yankees to sort of renew their rivalry again.
Yeah, I think I was the only one. I thought Guardians Mets would kill it in the ratings. That was my personal opinion. It wasn't a slated opinion at all. It was my personal. It was in my soul. It was in my soul. I Matt. Hey, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for coming on. Great conversation as always. I know a lot of the listeners appreciate when you come on as well. So we'll do it again. Thank you for doing this, and we'll get with you soon. All right, bud. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, anytime. I'll talk to you, Allen.
All right, brother. That is Matt Moreno right there. Dodger Blue. Dodger Blue. Dodgers just invading my own show. The hell's going on here? Yeah.